is a good friend of mine who is a healthcare practitioner, certified nurse practitioner. So essentially, you can prescribe medications, order testing, basically pretty much what a doctor does.
Correct.
So my guest today is in a unique position. She was born on the island of Haiti. And as we all know, Haiti is suffering the effects of another devastating earthquake. And this after the devastation of 2010 that caused widespread destruction and countless people lost their lives. So currently, right now, on the island of Haiti, there are immediate reports of up to 2,000 people, or more than 2,000 people, have lost their life in widespread damage in the western portion of Haiti. So, Helene, having been born in Haiti and knowing the situation down there, what can you tell us about the needs of the people on the island right now?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Ronald, for having me.
It's my pleasure.
I appreciate being here and to be able to share any kind of pearls I can with you all. It's my pleasure and an honor to be here.
It's good to have you.
Yes, I was born on the island of Haiti. My family were fortunate to migrate or relocate from Haiti when I was about 8 years old into the United States. But we've maintained our roots. We've maintained our tradition. We've kept the culture.
Mm-hmm.
And I have also been privileged to have to be working in Haiti and have been working in Haiti since 2009 as a missionary practitioner, a missionary nurse, through our founding organization, Helping Hands and Beyond. I have been following some of the vulnerable needs of the poverty in Haiti, which includes the medical needs, psychosocial, more in the public health realm, because I'm a health practitioner, so I stay where I'm comfortable at.
Right.
And so as a responder in 2010 from the previous earthquake, and while I'm coordinating to do the same now, the needs are tremendous.
I can imagine.
The immediate physical trauma from acute fractures, limb dislocations, severe traumatic wounds, severe traumatic head damages. And then after the earthquake, as you all know, there was a hurricane.
Right.
Hurricane Grace decided to grace the island with her presence.
Which only hampered the rescue efforts.
Which not only hampered, but deepened the wound of the hurricane that just occurred 2 days ago. Because now...
Well, for that section of Haiti that was stricken, is there adequate health care? In other words, are there hospitals? Are there clinics? And are they functioning in the aftermath of this earthquake?
So adequate is, I don't think I've ever used the word adequate as it relates to healthcare in Haiti, especially when we're talking about the vulnerable areas. Yes, there are hospitals. Are they equipped to function? I would say no, because the resources can be very limited. Again, we're talking about when we're hitting the countryside, the villages, the mountainside, the rural parts, almost non-existent.
So prior to the earthquake and the devastation, are you saying that these hospitals generally function or are barely functionable? In other words, they're understaffed, they don't have adequate supplies. Would that be factual?
Factual. They're functioning suboptimal due to lack of resources, understaffed, adequate supplies, financial instability, poor sustainability, poor infrastructure. Yes.
So for these people, the most seriously injured, all of them are being medevaced out?
No, they're being taken care of on the island.
Okay.
They're being taken care of the island. Every single individual. Well, I can't say every single. Some, if the trauma is so devastating, then there may be an NGO or a global organization that could sponsor them to be medevaced,
Okay.
right? So in other words, I would have to sponsor, work through the government, and work with a receiving agency from the country that they're being medevaced to. So, for example, they're coming to the United States.
Mm-hmm.
You would have to have an accepting facility that would be willing to take care of those individuals when you say medevaced. So the patients are being taken care of on the island.
So where are they taking to? Are they taking them to Port-au-Prince?
No, we have a lot of different NGOs like myself. You have grassroots NGOs, and you have NGOs like UN, WHO that are on the grounds, ADRA that are on the grounds already. Whether they're performing rescue services, digging people from the rubble, or if they're performing tent or within hospital, medical or trauma care.
Okay, so I guess what I'm trying to understand is, in the case of President Jovenel Moise,
Mm-hmm.
after he was fatally wounded, his wife was brought to Miami for treatment. Is that correct?
She's the president's wife.
I get that. I get that.
That can be done.
But when you're seriously wounded, right? You don't have time to make medical decisions, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have someone a building has fallen on them, and they have serious head injuries, internal injuries, and they need surgery right away. So if they're on adequate facilities, say in Port-au-Prince or some of the surrounding localities, what are they going to do with these people?
What happens to them?
Right.
You tell me.
Mm.
You're
That's a good
exactly. The service. What happens to them is they provide comfort. They do the best they can with the resource that they have. And so that person, to be blunt with you, they might, if a lucky provider doesn't come around to see that emergent need, that person will probably die.
Okay, because this is a mass casualty incident. So typically, now I used to be a paramedic, way back when. So we had triage tags. So you had green, yellow, red, and black. So if somebody was deemed red after triage, this person is in need of immediate medical attention.
Mm-hmm.
If not, they're going to end up in the black category or dead.
Mm-hmm.
So with so many people, and I think the last media report is, I think 2,200 people have died.
Mm-hmm. In
terms of injured people, of course, I haven't heard any estimates yet. But with widespread damage, you have to assume there are literally thousands of people in need of immediate medical attention.
So in 2010, 300,000 died from this earthquake. So put it into perspective, right? I was in Haiti 2 weeks after the earthquake in 2010, and there were still people alive under rubbles that we could not extravagate.
Right. You couldn't get to those people.
We couldn't get them. We didn't have the manpower. We didn't have the resources, the equipment to get them out. And so when we're talking about the black category, I'm sure there are many individuals that are in the black category. My role there as a practitioner is to do the best that I can with the resources that I have. Now, knowing what I know about the black categories, I might expedite, right? Because I remember what I was saying to you, if there's someone there that's able to do more, then they will expedite to do more. I might expedite a CAT scan. I might expedite more emergent care and services. And here's another caveat to the story. Most of, I would say 99.9% of the facilities are fee for service.
Mm-hmm.
So it's how much you have and who you know.
Right. Now, I just want to clarify something for people who may be listening. So we talked about certain categories. I mentioned yellow, green, red. I'm sorry, green, yellow, red, and black. So we should probably explain what each category means. So if a person is green, they have minor injuries, and typically those are the people you can have assist you in treating other people. The people who are yellow have things like maybe a broken leg, a broken arm, who are considered serious but are stable. People in the red category are in immediate need of medical attention or they're going to die. And the people who are in the black category are those people who, when you find them, are either dead or very close to expiring. It is really not what you can do given the lack of resources. So I just wanted to clarify that for our listeners. So when you talk about NGOs and other organizations, relief agencies that are there, how many, would you say that the United States is well represented in terms of providing care and assistance in Haiti?
As of right now, yes.
Okay.
There are many organizations from the United States there, from grassroots to the major ones, WHO.
Okay. Because I do remember the 2010 quake.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that a number of relief agencies and a couple of well-known celebrities like from the singer, I can't think of his name. He was with Lauryn Hill. Wyclef Jean.
Mm-hmm.
He was one of the people who was actively raising funds.
Mm-hmm.
Yet, 11 years later, and there's still a great deal of work to be done. Mm-hmm. It is said that a lot of the money never reached the people who needed it most. Mm-hmm. That a lot of that money was taken, in fact, misappropriated, shall we say, and that the people are still suffering. So now you do about 4 trips a year down there, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. In your trips, how much improvement have you seen in the areas that were hit by the first quake in 2010?
So I want to say in general, just to respond to the misuse, the abuse of vulnerability to begin with. I want to say that stems from a personal accountability issue. Mm-hmm. Our organization, Helping Hands and Beyond, we have been working in Haiti since 2009. And we were very actively present during the quake, 2010. Post-quake, we were present as well. And I want to say over the past 12 years, we've coordinated, on average, 3 mission trips with about 20 to 25, sometimes 30 volunteers per trip, so that we can bring mobile clinics to sections of the vulnerabilities. So we will not work in the Port-au-Prince region where all the resources are, but we will go into villages where individuals have not seen ever a clinic. Mm-hmm. With, I mean, absolutely no health services in that area. So it's like driving to Tobyhanna,
right?
And there's nothing there, and everybody has to drive walk an hour and a half to come to Stroudsburg to get medical service.
Right.
If I can put it into perspective for you. And so years later, we have an actual clinic that we built. Mm-hmm. And I'm just going through the progression with you.
And where's this clinic located?
It's located in a town called Miraguan.
Okay. It's
about 2 miles from the Port-au-Prince region. Mm-hmm. And it's about an hour and a half to 2 hours from where the southwest region where the earthquake hit.
Okay, now we both mentioned Port-au-Prince, mm-hmm. right? It's probably the city that most people, well, it's the capital.
It's the capital.
And most people are familiar with, who are familiar with Haiti, are familiar with Port-au-Prince. Now, you mentioned that you don't do much in Port-au-Prince because that's where the resources are. Mm-hmm. are there adequate resources in Port-au-Prince? And of the money that was raised. Because, when you see pictures from Haiti, you still see remnants of major devastation in and around the city of Port-au-Prince. So, are those images inaccurate?
What happens to the money? I can't tell you. Ronald. I didn't see any of the money personally.
Right. Well, no.
I know what you mean.
Right.
So you're saying the money was raised within different organizations. So a Wycliffe raised some money, UN raised some money, WHO raised money, and the Bill Clinton Foundation raised money.
And I think that's where the money went.
And I can't tell you where the money went.
Right.
But are there adequate resources now for the people? No.
Even in Port-au-Prince.
There's no adequate resources anywhere in Haiti. There's no adequate medical resources, no adequate daily living resources. There's no adequate resources, as you would say, those basic necessities.
Mm-hmm.
Turning on your faucet and having clean running water.
Right.
And going into your kitchen and put your garbage, and there's sanitation that will pick up your garbage. So there are basic necessities to the point where there are areas people are walking hours to get water. So there's no adequate resources.
We're fortunate in most of the contiguous United States to have an adequate supply of clean running water.
And we take it for granted, and we waste it.
But in some places we don't. In Flint, Michigan, the governor, I can't remember his name, he switched over from the resource that had been using, the supply of water had been using for years, to a supply of water because they were supposedly replacing the water lines. And the water that they were providing to Flint, Michigan and the surrounding suburbs was contaminated, and they knew it from day one. And a lot of the people, and Flint is probably a town that is predominantly Black and brown, poor. So a lot of these children were sickened with things like dysentery and things that you would find not necessarily in the contiguous United States. Well, I shouldn't say that, because there are places in America where they don't have running water.
I was going to say, take a ride down to Camden.
Right. And even if you go down in Mississippi Delta, you'll find conditions that are very similar to what you might find in Haiti. Mm-hmm. But for those people who are listening, what can they do now? Because I can remember in 1995, I was still a paramedic, and I was watching the news, and I got a Time magazine, and this was during the Rwandan crisis, where the Hutus were slaughtering the Tutsis. And there was a waterfall, and there were so many bodies falling from the waterfall, you couldn't even see the water. So I told my wife, I have to do something. So I called up, I don't remember the agency, and I volunteered to go. They said, well, right now, because of the conditions, what we need an epidemiologist, because at that time, with so much death, there were a number of diseases that were rampant. And they needed people to address, that epidemiological crisis. But I just felt that I had to do something. And probably there's some people listening now who are hearing and getting a sense of what's going on, who feel the same way I did, that you got to do something. So what are some of the things they can do?
I would say, number one, follow your heart. If you have the desire, the urge to do, follow your heart to do. Because chances are, by doing, it's not only going to help the other person, but the secondary effects, which we can talk about. We could spend all night talking about. Number two is to connect with someone that has been doing the job. Mm-hmm. Connect with someone credible that has accountability towards the same goals as you have. Mm-hmm. So if your goal is to connect with someone that has the same goal to do, and that has credibility where you can effectively tap your resources. Some of those immediate needs now are emergent needs. Mm-hmm. Imagine having lost the little the little garage-sized home that you had from an earthquake.
Mhm.
And you've worked all your years, you planted your tomatoes and your corn, you sold all of it, and finally built your little structure, and then now it's gone. What are you left with? You're left with nothing.
Right.
You got to start all over. So those immediate needs is, of course, number one, it's medical. Second is are those basic necessities. Some areas have no clean water. They need a well. They need clean water system, purification system. They need help with infrastructure to rebuild their home, maybe a tent or something to help them with some relief. Your monetary, maybe you can't go, you can't help. Maybe you might have $30, $100. Maybe you have $1 a day that you can help adopt a family. That $1 a day can help feed a whole family for a period of time, or $30. Mm-hmm.
So, can you recommend any reputable agencies that people could contact and reach out to, like right now, and send whatever they can? Because there's no amount that's too small.
No amount is too small. Now I'm gonna be biased. Our organization, Helping Hands and Beyond, has been on the ground for the past 13 years in Haiti.
And how can people send money or contact Helping Hands?
So Helping Hands and Beyond is you can find our the website helpinghandsandbeyond.com. We are on the World Wide Web, where you can see our history, see the work we've done, see the progression of our clinic and our current disaster relief effort. Or you can find information on Facebook, Helping Hands and Beyond, the same. We have donate buttons everywhere, and if you wanted to, let's say, sponsor a family, sponsor a village, or even contribute to our disaster relief, you can do that as well, right on the website.
So now I have a question for you.
Sure.
Now, you go down there 4 times a year.
Yes.
How do you cope with that? I remember back in my paramedic days in late 80s, early 90s, and I was in New York City, so I saw some things that I'll never forget. Mm-hmm. There are some sights, some sounds, some smells that take me right back there. Mm-hmm. And when you go to the island of your birth and you see where the city is in ruins, where people you may have known, family members even, may have lost their lives, mm-hmm. and are feeling the effects of this devastating quake. How do you cope with that?
That's a great question. My background is in emergency trauma medicine. I have been in the medicine field since I was 17 as a nurse's aide. Mm-hmm. In the ICU is where I started. So I have been in this field for over 30 years. I have seen a lot. Mm-hmm. I have probably seen it all. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the gifts that God has blessed me with is the gift of compartmentalizing. Mm-hmm. But secondary to that is my strong faith of prayer. Prayer becomes my decompression, and worship becomes my decompression. Okay. So when I worship, it heals the wounds. So sure, we have PTSD. I remember from my previous hurricane trip, we were cutting limbs without anesthesia with manual saws.
Right.
So you can't ever take that picture out of your mind.
No.
With little kids underneath the rubble, you hear them crying, and you can't.
There's nothing you can do.
There's nothing you can do. And outside of that, driving down the highway while the electrician is working in the pole, falling out the bucket.
Really?
Really. Oh, I've seen that here. I'm just telling you about my experience and the mm-hmm. trauma over the years. So one thing that has helped me, whether it's the trauma of witnessing my birth island and exploring the deplorable condition, I am encouraged knowing that I have dropped a pebble in the bucket.
Right.
So there's a village there's an area that we work with. We do it well. If I reach one life, I try to do it well. And I try to teach you and give you resources so that you can continue to help yourself.
Right.
Go plant that tomato, plant that crop, plant that corn. Here's some seeds, and make that seed work for you. And how do you make that seed to continue to work for you? Teaching them about modalities, how to maintain their blood pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Teaching them how to use the herbs that they have in their backyard to keep that blood pressure low. Educating about kidney disease, kidney failure. So I thrive and feel healed knowing that, yes, there are some things that I may not change because some battles are greater than me.
Mm-hmm.
But the battles that I can fight, I give it all that I can through education, providing some mode of sustainability, providing some mode of hope so that it continue to make a ripple effect.
So let me ask you this. Does it ever make you angry? And when I say angry, now, my parents were from South Carolina, and I was born in Brooklyn. But it's my understanding that probably the vast majority of Africans who were taken out of West Africa, of those that were taken to the island of Haiti, most of them are from Nigeria. I did a DNA test and found out that I am predominantly Nigerian as well. So while I'm not born in the island of Haiti, there is a link, right? The people in Haiti who have suffered this devastation are probably some of my family members that were just separated on the ship. We were dropped off in Charleston, South Carolina, and they were dropped off in Cap Haitian. And when you see conditions like that, and you come back to this country and you see the waste, where people are going out to an expensive dinner, throwing away half the food, where people are taking a shirt that has a tiny little ribbon and throws it away. We waste probably 1/3 of the world's resources just in this country alone. And the fact that, Haiti is maybe an hour and a half flight from Miami. And it was the first Black republic in the Western Hemisphere. A country that would have been economically sustainable if it were not for reparations that were put on them. So basically, the French told them, yes, you gained your freedom, but we're going to place crippling reparations on you. So we're going to make you pay for the freedom you earned with your blood, sweat, and tears. Does that ever make you angry?
Anger, getting angry should be should drive you to do something for change, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to say, when I look at a situation that caused me to have such strong emotions, my emotions should be, now that I'm angry, what am I doing about it?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Or am I just going to be angry and cause my anger to get me sick?
Mm-hmm.
Cause me to have high blood pressure, diabetes, obesity, chronic inflammation? Because that's what happens when we meander in our anger. It causes us to have biological and physiological effects and disease, chronic diseases. Or am I going, because it's a normal emotion to be angry.
Mm-hmm.
Am I going to use this circumstance of my anger to propel me to do something about the situation? So you said a lot of things that has a lot of layers. We talked about historically, first Black Republic, historically that we have some connections, historically that we are a system of waste a system of selfish. We're a selfish system. We're a wasteful system. We have no accountability. You know, there's a lot of things that we can talk about as it relates to poverty. But then we are a system that's meandering in poverty, that we're not even aware that we are in a poor state. In other words, selfishness is a poor state. Wasteful is a poor state. Not just my infrastructure, but now as a person and self-reflecting in a personal way. When I'm angry about a situation, what am I doing about it? What are we all doing about it? You know, what are you doing about it? It's a rhetorical question. What are you doing about it? Okay, so you're Black, I'm Black. Haiti's a Black nation, first Black republic. So if it's a first Black republic, that means they set the bar for all of us as Black people. They set the bar for Americans, English, Ireland, whoever you are. They set the bar because they created that lineage of freedom for the rest of us. What are we doing about it? If we're triggered and we're that angry, what are we doing about it to pull together to say, what can we do?
And that is a great question. And that's something that we could spend a lifetime discussing. But we have to do something that is positive. I understand anger is a toxic emotion, and it affects you in ways that some of us will never know. Some of us live in anger. Unsure why, but we live in anger. But hopefully, the anger that we feel, the frustration, will lead us to want to help, to do something. So I'm going to give out the phone number. If people have questions regarding what's going on in Haiti, how you can help, please give us a call. The number here is 888-304-4401. Haiti is in desperate need of your assistance. If it's just a nickel or a dime, but there's no amount that's too small. There's no effort that is too small. So anything that you can do. You know, I believe in the power of prayer, but I also believe that faith without works is dead. So I think that once we get up off our knees, then we have to think about the people in Haiti who are sending their kids to bed with nothing to eat, who are digging through piles of rubble to try to find a loved one, and who are just hoping that someone will think of them and do something, some little thing just to help. So, you know, if you're listening and you have questions and you want to help, give us a call, 888-304-4401. So when you go down to Haiti, you go with like a team of doctors or nurses?
Yes. Normally we travel as a team. I coordinate the teams from different parts of the world.
Oh, really?
We have a database of volunteers, Canada, Europe, and we all get together in Haiti and we do the work.
And all of them are doctors, nurses?
Not all. Most are health providers, paramedics like yourself, teachers, physical therapists, occupational therapists, speech, students, nursing students, and high school students. Over the summer, we run a vacation Bible school where our students completely manage and take care of that aspect of our mission. So the work is very rewarding. It's tremendous, but it's very rewarding.
So when you go to Haiti on your next trip, will you be going in the area of the epicenter?
We are going into the outskirts of the epicenter. If you recall earlier in our conversation, the epicenter is saturated with help, but then they're forgetting the outskirts. The individuals in the villages that were also affected but because everybody wants to be in the epicenter,
Right.
they're not migrating. Or it could be because of infrastructure, no road access, because most of the villages, they don't have any road access. So I'm okay getting on a motorcycle with my supplies to get up the hill to help those individuals, or getting on a mule or a horse to go up there. I'm fine with that too.
So is it safe? And when I say safe, you know, I mean, there's very little, I guess, in the area of security. And then you have to be concerned about the possibility of aftershocks or maybe another quake. And right now, within the next couple of months, we'll be getting into hurricane season. And we already had one that struck the island. And there are more churning out, you know, in the Atlantic. So does that play a factor in your thinking when you go into these areas?
Yeah, every single variable you just mentioned plays a factor on my decision to go or not. But normally, and I'm speaking for and I speak for the team as well. I even prior, matter of fact, even when I travel to Skid Row to go do a feed, I don't guarantee anybody's safety.
Right.
I don't guarantee it.
Right.
I can't protect you, whether we're here or in Haiti. I don't guarantee the safety. So it's like-minded people like you and I that understands the environmental variables that exist, and we all have that drive, that driven desire to do something. We come together and we all agree that and understand that we cannot provide safety for each other, but we're gonna do the work. And we're gonna strap our boots, we're gonna put our poncho on, we're gonna bring our tent, whatever we need to provide that service. If it's one person, we feel like we've done the work.
So now I've seen, of course, news footage of U.S. military aircraft landing and offloading supplies. Well, are these supplies reaching the outlying areas?
That's my concern.
Right.
That is my concern. So we have our clinic in Haiti that has been going to the outlying areas to do needs assessments. So 4 of the locations that we're going to be going to has not had any service or assistance at all. Our clinic has been providing that assistance to them. So the major NGOs have not reached those areas. Maybe they will eventually, but as of right now, no, they have not gotten any at all. Resource, supplies, food, water, nothing.
Are they able to get to these areas? Because if you recall, when in Puerto Rico, and the situation that happened there, some of the bridges were completely destroyed.
Correct.
And it was the only means of access to get to this particular area. So either a helicopter would come and drop supplies, or these people in that particular area would starve or go without water or medical supplies. So is that the same, or are you aware if that may be the same situation in some of these areas?
That can be. It can be. As I said, it could be an infrastructure, no roads, because some of those little areas, they don't have road access. They have paths because people ambulate to their destination. They walk, or there's a motor path to their destination, but there's no car, so they may not have any access with a vehicle. But the mode of vehicle to get there could be a horse, a mule, a motorbike to get to the mountains or the villages. So, or again, a helicopter, like you said.
Now, just a few weeks ago, and we mentioned this a short time ago, President Jovenel Moïse was shot and killed. So, what are the conditions in Haiti politically? And is there instability right now in the country?
Sure. The president's been shot. There's instability. You know, that is definitely expected. Instability and governmental safety. So there is political unrest at this time in Haiti, yes.
Okay. All right. But at the same time, you would feel pretty safe traveling there.
I'm already booked to go, Ronald.
Right.
I'm booked to go.
Right. Okay.
It's again, it's when you have that drive to do so. When you call for a mission,
Mhm.
when you call for a mission,
You have to go.
you go. And I
Right.
believe calling with a mission goes with the resources. The resources are given to you.
Well,
I feel strongly about it.
you know what? And we need more people like you who do feel strongly enough and who are willing to put themselves at personal risk to go and extend a helping hand to others.
But all of us have that. All of us have it, but fear, a lot of time, not even a lot of time, most of the time, fear becomes that barrier. And now you may not have that fire to go, but you have the fire to give. But I'm afraid to give,
You know, I would say that probably the vast majority of people have some degree of that.
Mhm.
But I think that being raised in a capitalist society, it changes. It has a way of changing you. We're all born with certain gifts and skills and blessings. But over time, I guess we allow ourselves to be changed. We become absorbed in the capitalist mentality. It's a dog-eat-dog. It's a dog-eat-dog system.
I don't know. I tend to disagree because we all want to feel good. We all want to have a purpose. All of us have. Although, yes, I agree with the capitalists, dog eat dog, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. But at the end of the day, in your quiet space, there is that moment of reflection where we think about, what am I here for? What is my purpose? What makes me feel good?
I think that, unfortunately, not a lot of people do that in this country. I think we're so self-absorbed into what's going on with us that we really don't feel that we have the ability to extend ourselves to help others, because we get so caught up. And right now in this country, and of course around the world, we're dealing with this coronavirus pandemic. And of course, that has only heightened the fear that people have had, historically. And now, people, I guess, feel as if they have limited resources. Some people haven't gone back to work. Some people can't go back to work. Some people are basically, struggling here in this country because they're facing eviction once a moratorium is lifted. They don't know where they're going to be. So they may not feel that they can extend a helping hand to others. I guess some of us don't realize how far a dollar may go someplace else. It means nothing here. I mean, you can barely buy a newspaper with $1 here, but $1 a day some other places may feed a family for a month. So I guess we need to be aware of that and realize, again, no amount is too small, and any token can help somebody when they're at their worst.
And it connects us to the bigger, to what's bigger than us.
Mm-hmm.
That dollar, it's I could ask you for $1 every day, but I love it when we can internalize now that dollar connects me to the person or to the next person and the next person.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm making an impact. I'm making a difference. I'm dropping that pebble in that bucket.
Now, I have a question regarding the coronavirus outbreak. So, right now, there are some reports that the virus or the actual vaccine is not getting, to Haiti at all, really, or not in adequate supplies, right? And then there are some reports that many people in Haiti don't want the vaccine. What are your thoughts on that?
It could be both. It could be inadequate supplies, and many people don't want the vaccine.
So what are your thoughts on the vaccine
What is my
itself?
thought on the vaccine? My thought on the vaccine is we don't have adequate research on the vaccine. For me to really say that there was a final decision, I don't know, 20,000 people were studied, and this is the effects of it.
Mm-hmm.
Though we understand that vaccines, the whole purpose of the vaccine is to help mitigate emergent symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, the vaccine itself is not going to prevent you from COVID. It's not going to prevent the person from catching COVID, but it's going to lower your symptoms, the acuity or the severity of your symptoms when you get COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're finding now with this new variant, especially the new variant, CDC released a message that 93% of the patients that are in the hospital with severe symptoms. So what is a severe symptom? A severe symptom could be acute respiratory distress, where the person may end up on a mechanical breathing device so that they can be assisted with their oxygenation. Severe pneumonia is another one. Acute blood clot, or they could have the blood clot in their chest, in the lung area, called pulmonary embolism.
Mm-hmm.
So we're finding that individuals with the variant that has had the vaccine still has COVID, but it's a less severe symptomatic response.
Mm-hmm.
Versus no vaccine, much more severe response. So my take on vaccines as a whole, as a professional, is that the vaccine has its place. It has its place, especially when you're a person with multiple chronic diseases, or we call them multiple comorbidities,
Mm-hmm.
with different chronic diseases like high blood pressure, especially diabetes, especially when you're struggling with uncontrolled obesity, and you have some form of autoimmune disease where your system is immunosuppressed, where your immune system is low. I feel like the vaccine has its place because, again, the research is showing with COVID associating, again, in conjunction to those chronic diseases, potentiates the severity of the response that you're seeing.
Well, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Now, about 2 months or so ago, a building collapsed down in just outside Miami.
Mm-hmm.
And there were a number of rescue workers working in close proximity. And at some point, some of them were tested and found to be positive for COVID. Is that the same case down in Haiti that you're aware of? Because, of course, people are working in close proximity. Same sort of scenario, working in close proximity, trying to rescue people trapped under rubble. So, some reports are saying that there's a rampant spread of COVID in Haiti. Have you heard reports like that?
I have heard of the COVID spread.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to the earthquake, the numbers for COVID was really low actually in Haiti.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard that there has been some increased incidence of COVID. It could be possibly the rescuers that are migrating. It could be the individuals that were in that area that had COVID that's spreading it to the rescuers.
Right.
So it's a back and forth deal of who has who and who has not. And remember, again, with limited resources, the population may not go for testing.
Mm-hmm.
So I could have COVID and be symptom free, or I could have COVID and have had a fever or a cough. I don't know where to go to get a COVID test.
Right.
And I'm living with COVID, and here you are coming to help me. I have COVID. Tag, you're it, right? So the resources are limited. The population may not, especially in the villages, the South region, may not have ample resources to quantify truly if there is an outbreak, or if there is a need, if there is treatment, immediate treatment that's needed for COVID.
Well, you got to figure in this country, in places like Texas and parts of Florida, people are being turned away. No ICU beds. People who are going to the emergency room for other conditions are being told you have to go to another hospital. So if that's a problem here, most certainly I can see being a problem down there.
Right? Do you remember last year? I mean, we had refrigerator trucks, cooling trucks, we had tents, and the chaos, the saga continues. And it's not just here in the United States, it's in Haiti as well. And I'm sure in some other parts of Brazil and our South American countries that are struggling as well right now with high incidence of COVID.
Yeah. And you still have family in Haiti, is that correct?
I have some extended family in Haiti.
Okay, but they are away from this region.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, it is just heartbreaking when you see some of these images. And when you consider the fact that Haiti is still reeling from the initial earthquake in 2010. And, Haiti has the distinction of being called the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. So people were struggling, prior to the earthquake, the first earthquake. And now you have that, the country's trying to, find adequate resources to rebuild. And in the midst of that, another earthquake. And there are some reports that in the initial earthquake in 2010, the devastation was so great that it opened up chasms in certain parts of Haiti where you could look in and, people discovered some very valuable, minerals.
Resources.
Right. in Haiti. And of course, there were a number of multinational corporations that ran down and wanted to immediately sign contracts to get control of those valuable minerals. And, isn't it ironic that after, the contracts were not signed, suddenly the president was assassinated in his own home and his wife is very seriously wounded. That is the cost of capitalism. One of the costs of capitalism. So I just hope that people who are listening, it'll tug at their heartstrings to want to do something, to feel moved, to contact your agency or some agency, even if it's the Red Cross or some agency. And if you can't physically go to Haiti, send your dollars, send your thoughts, send your prayers, anything to help the people who, again, are recovering from not one but two devastating earthquakes. So I hope you the best on your trip down there. Hope God will protect you and your team.
Thank you.
And that you can do some work down there to help even one person.
Yes.
Because I know it's truly a mission of mercy.
It is. Thank you so much for having me.
You are so welcome.
And I'm sorry, I was going to say I stand to be corrected. I said it was .com. It's helpinghandsandbeyond.org, O-R-G, helpinghandsandbeyond.org.
Okay, so helpinghands.org.
Hands and Beyond.
Helpinghandsandbeyond.org.
Yes.
So go to helpinghandsandbeyond.org, look up the organization, and please give. Help out those who are so desperately in need. So hopefully, after your next visit to Haiti, you can come back and tell us a little bit more about what you saw, what you experienced down there, and give more insight to people as to what's happening down there. Hopefully, people will help, and hopefully, after your next visit, and people learn more about just how bad things are, then maybe more people will be moved to give and to offer some sort of assistance.
Super. I'd love that.
That would be great to have you come back.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, we got about 4 minutes left. So, this was just an hour was not enough time to really go in depth about issues like this because there's so much, that I wanted to talk about, because some of the immediate needs. Before I was a paramedic, I was in the Army and I was in a mass unit. So when you have something like a mass casualty incident, you want to establish, of course, things like water, food, shelter, and sanitation. But those are just the basics.
Those basic necessities, yeah.
Just the basic necessities.
Yep.
But there is so much more that is needed. And, you know, you don't think about it at the time. You know, when there is something like an earthquake, a devastating earthquake, you don't think that while all this is going on, babies are being born. So you need things like milk,
Diapers,
blankets, incubators, OBS kits, all of these things that we don't think about because you know what, you figure people need food, water, shelter, they need medical supplies, rescue equipment, but you don't think about the other needs. You know, those daily necessities that we just take for granted every day. But in the midst of a situation like an earthquake, even those daily necessities are a struggle.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There are struggles for sure. Again, you know, we talk about water supply. Like one of the needs assessment we had, they were going to one of the villages. They have a creek that was totally wiped out, and the creek was what they were getting as their water supply. So now there's no water. I'm sure the water is somewhere, but it's covered by rubble, and the earth was disturbed. The earth was disturbed, so that disturbed their water supply. One of the projects we're looking at is to bring a well or some form of filtration system for that area. So if anybody out there is familiar with well or would love to sponsor a well to a village, please contact us. We would love to have you support us, sponsor a well.
And that's helpinghandsandbeyond.org. Okay. So, Helene, thank you so much for joining me on the show. And again, I'm going to send an open invitation for you to come back and tell us more about your trip and what you saw firsthand down in Haiti.
Thank you for having me. It was great. I really appreciate and humbly able to share the work that we do and the lives that we touch. And it tremendously makes a difference, guys.
Well, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
And for those who are listening, please give. If it's just $1 a day, it makes a world of difference. So again, this has been my Brother's Keeper Show. And I thank you for listening and have a good night.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
All right.
Thank you.
Oh, no, you're welcome.
That's
Thank
great.
you.